Washington, D.C. in chaos, protesters breaking through barriers and storming the Capitol, temporarily shutting down democracy.
We will never give up. We will never concede. It doesn't happen. You don't concede when there's theft involved.
Just hours before President Trump speaking to thousands of his supporters, now he's asking them to remain peaceful. New York is ramping up its vaccine distribution plan, but will Catholic schools be included in the rollout? Plus,
thinking outside the box because they have to. I'm Jessica Easthope with how one Brooklyn business has reinvented itself to survive the pandemic.
And Pope Francis celebrates his first public mass of the new year, urging Catholics to devote more time to worshiping God. The news starts right now. Tensions erupting into chaos at the heart of our nation. Protesters descending onto the Capitol steps, and they didn't stop there.
They broke the glass?
The mob busting through security and making their way inside the building, clawing their way inside the chamber. Good evening, I'm Christine Persichetti. They're scenes we just don't see in the U.S. until now. Protesters who believe the election was stolen from President Trump took their gloves off today. The very place where laws are born was turned into a place of lawlessness.
Take the Hill!
Protesters swarmed the Capitol and breached the halls of Congress, prompting the building to go into lockdown as thousands of Trump supporters surround the building, forcing their way in. The massive demonstrations interrupting important business.
Everybody stay down! Get down!
A typically mundane procedural process to formally count the Electoral College votes. Hijacked both inside and outside of the Capitol.
Americans instinctively know there was something wrong with this election.
Proceeding over the joint session, Vice President Mike Pence.
If Mike Pence does the right thing, we win the election.
But the vice president is powerless to overturn the Electoral College results, in which Joe Biden won 306 electoral votes to President Trump's 232 votes.
We will never give up. We will never concede.
Multiple Republicans promised to spend the day challenging the votes in several states.
That we are gathered at a time when democracy is in crisis.
But a larger bipartisan group dismisses the objections.
If this election were overturned by mere allegations from the losing side, our democracy would enter a death spiral.
It's unclear right now how or when the chaos on Capitol Hill will be resolved and whether officials can regain control on the ground. Meanwhile, after the protesters stormed into the building, the president tweeted,
This was a fraudulent election, but we can't play into the hands of these people. We have to have peace. So go home. We love you. You're very special.
President-elect Joe Biden also commented on the situation in the nation's capital.
But today's reminder, a painful one, that democracy is fragile, and to preserve it requires people of goodwill, leaders with the courage to stand up, who are devoted not to the pursuit of power, or the personal interest pursuits of their own selfish interest at any cost.
The U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops is also responding to the chaos at the Capitol. A tweet sent out just after 3 p.m. from the USCCB account reads, "Lord God of peace, hear our prayer." The prayer on social media retweeted by USCCB President Archbishop Jose Gomez. Other bishops around the country have said they will be praying the rosary. President Trump claims the presidential election was rigged. He said the same thing about the Georgia Senate runoff. At the time of this recording, they were still counting ballots in one of the races, with control of the U.S. Senate hanging in the balance. Darrell Forges has the latest.
Just under 4.5 million Georgians voted in yesterday's runoff, and history was made. Raphael Warnock will be the first black senator for the state of Georgia.
What happened last night is stunning. We flipped the state.
Reverend Raphael Warnock, the senior pastor of Ebenezer Baptist Church in Atlanta, former home of Martin Luther King Jr., made history Tuesday to become the first black senator from Georgia, beating Republican incumbent Kelly Loeffler.
It is a sacred trust, and it's one that I take very seriously, and I hope to honor that promise in the work that we will do in the days ahead.
Still up for grabs, the race between GOP incumbent David Perdue and challenger Jon Ossoff, and hanging in the balance, control of the United States Senate.
We believe that the total vote will probably be pushing 4.6 million. And when you think we had 5 million that just showed up in November, it's just tremendous turnout.
If Ossoff also wins, each party will have 50 Senate seats. Incoming Vice President Kamala Harris would serve as a tie-breaking vote, essentially easing the path of the Biden administration.
This is the last line of defense against this radical socialist agenda.
I will serve all the people of the state. I will give everything I've got to ensuring that Georgia's interests are represented in the U.S. Senate.
With record early and absentee turnout for a runoff in Georgia, razor-thin margins, and possible recounts, it could be days before the final winner is declared. Now, Kelly Loeffler has not conceded, and Joe Biden has released a statement on yesterday's election saying, quote, Georgia's voters delivered a resounding message yesterday. They want action on the crises we face, and they want it right now. Now, get this. The last time Georgia had a Democratic senator was over 20 years ago, back in 2000. In Atlanta, I'm Daryl Forges.
Turning now to updates on the COVID-19 vaccine rollout. New concerns from Catholic educators. They're afraid New York City's Catholic schools may be left out of the mix. They want Catholic schools to be part of the distribution plan that includes public schools. The Diocese of Brooklyn and the Archdiocese of New York making a plea in a letter to Mayor Bill de Blasio and the city's schools chancellor, writing, since reopening our school buildings in September, educators, administrators, and staff have been on the front lines, holding our educational institutions together. It is imperative that they be given the protection they deserve as soon as possible. No word from the mayor's office in today's coronavirus briefing on whether Catholic schools will be included in the rollout. But de Blasio did expand on the city's plan to ramp up vaccinations.
All 5 boroughs will have these mega sites, 24/7 sites. And the more authorization and flexibility we get, the more different kinds of people can come into those sites whenever convenient to them. But we want it to be by reservation to make sure it's done right.
The mayor also announcing that home care workers, some NYPD and other emergency response workers are now eligible for the vaccine. We will continue our conversation on the virus a little later in this newscast with Dr. Robert Tabali. He's here to talk about the new COVID variant that's now been detected in multiple states, including New York, and the vaccination rollout. Important information, so stay tuned. As New York City's COVID rate continues to rise, the fight over closing New York City schools has reignited, with a teachers union calling for future mass shutdowns. More uncertainty for parents who have already seen plenty of instability when it comes to in-person learning. Currents News' Emily Druby spoke with one Manhattan parent about her daughter's education journey this year.
Hey, Cease, how's your work going?
Good. Remote learning, it's become part of first grader Celine and her mother Judith Herrera's life. After 3 years in Catholic school, Judith wanted to try out the New York City public school system.
We just kind of wanted to see the difference.
But because of pandemic restrictions, Celine has only been inside that new school about 10 times this year.
So she never really formed the bonds, that she had at St. Stephen's.
This fall, many of the city's public school families dealing with constant uncertainty. The opening dates were pushed back, then just weeks after kids finally got into the buildings, they were shut down again. In late December, it seemed to be settling down, but now the city's positivity rate is creeping back up. As of Wednesday, over 130 public school buildings were closed because of cases or exposure, and the fight over closing schools has reignited. Both the governor and mayor recently saying they won't automatically shut down schools if the city's positivity rate tops 9%, while the United Federation of Teachers is calling for a total shutdown if it does, no matter the school's infection rate. More uncertainty.
if you can't plan when you need a sitter, how you arrange your work days. On a dime, it changes, and everything that you just set up for 2 weeks has gone kaput because now school's on a different day. Now school's at home.
Judith has had to take a leave of absence from work. Luckily, her job was very understanding. She praises their public school staff for keeping parents well informed and dealing with the sudden changes. But back in October, she and her husband decided to move Celine back to her old Catholic school, St. Stephen of Hungary in Manhattan. Right now, they're open 5 days a week for in-person learning. She's set to start in February, the busy school's first opening.
This has been so difficult for her, and for her to be going back to an environment that she already knows, she already loves.
Judith is excited for both stability and to bring faith back to her daughter's school experience.
It'll be great to get back to just that, faith and value system that we've so believed in and thrived in for the years she was there before.
On the Upper West Side in Manhattan, Emily Drewby, Currents News.
There's a lot more news headed your way. The new COVID strain is cause for concern. We'll check in with infectious disease expert Dr. Robert Tabali for details. Then,
so we have to reimagine, reinvent, and find ways to survive, which is extremely hard.
hard-hit business owners are using their ingenuity to beat back the effects of COVID shutdowns. And Pope Francis celebrates the traditional Mass for the Epiphany, his message to the faithful, when we come back.
Now you can help us put your faith in the news. The next time you capture a newsworthy event, send us your pictures or video. It's easy. Go to netny.tv/send us, and you may see your submission on Currents News.
This UK strain changes the whole foot race, because the UK strain, the rate of transmission goes way up.
Governor Andrew Cuomo with a warning about a COVID-19 strain discovered in upstate New York. He calls it a game changer. Governor Cuomo says the highly contagious strain of the virus is highly problematic. To find out more about it, let's bring in Dr. Robert Tabali of the Catholic Medical Association. And Dr. Tabali, the UK has gone into lockdown again, and there are other variants out there. How concerning is this?
Well, this new strain that came from the United Kingdom is actually much more infectious. And why is it more infectious? It's probably not because the virus has structurally changed too much. It's probably because there's more virus produced. Persons that have this infection likely put out more virus than persons with other strains. Now, we do know yesterday when I last looked at it, there were 23 mutations identified, and 17 of them were in the past several weeks. So we do understand that the virus is spontaneously mutating in many different areas.
All right, well, talking about all these different variants, will the vaccines that are being rolled out right now work for these different strains? You know, everyone can still get the flu even if you get the flu shot. Is it the same case with COVID?
Well, there's two questions there. One is that it's likely that the vaccines will continue to work on these new strains. And then secondly, the question is, can you get COVID after having a vaccination? And the answer is yes. And the vaccine basically helps you get over the COVID with either a very, very mild infection or no sensation of infection, or making it much milder than it otherwise would be. But it doesn't put a wall around you where you can't get infected with COVID.
Well, have you been vaccinated and have you administered the shot yourself?
I had COVID quite severely in March of 2020. And then I believe I may have contracted it again about 2 months ago.
Wow.
And I had a much milder infection, but it was overwhelming fatigue, unlike I've ever had before in my life, with severe headache. So I'm concerned that I would have a very extreme vaccine reaction. So I'm deferring vaccination for a number of months until my natural immunity would wane a bit before I subjected myself to a very potent vaccination.
Do you think, since you've already had the virus, that you don't need the vaccine?
Unfortunately, the vaccinations may not provide immunity longer than 4 or 5 months. People may need to get vaccinated a couple of times a year in order to maintain immunity. So I think that even if you've had natural infection, you probably would benefit from getting vaccinated again. A number of doctors that I work with actually got natural COVID infection around the time they got vaccinated. And some of them had very severe risk factors, and I believe that the vaccine actually helped them get over their natural infection with COVID, and they were able to recover quite quickly. Much less complications in those people than I've normally seen in persons with natural COVID infection.
All right, Dr. Robert Tabali of the Catholic Medical Association, always a wealth of information. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you very much, and God bless y'all. Thanks.
They've moved out onto the streets, advertised on social media, and even registered people to vote. These are just a few ways small businesses have adapted to survive the pandemic. But is it enough? Currents News' Jessica Easthope spoke with the owner of a cultural staple in Brooklyn that has recently reinvented itself.
This is our live room, which was a very, very active place.
For nearly 2 decades, Barbess has been an intersection of music and culture in Brooklyn.
As I said, we had shows every day for 18 years.
The best nights were when it was shoulder to shoulder. Now, the bar's once popular and vibrant live music space is empty.
It's been hard for a lot of small businesses. I think small music venues in particular have been hit really, really hard because we don't know when we'll be able to have music again.
Olivier Conan, the owner of Barbess, has had to think outside the box. For the last month, the bar that's hosted countless Grammy winners and big names like Norah Jones has become a wine shop.
So we have to reimagine, reinvent, and find ways to survive, which is extremely hard. This is our website.
The pandemic's effect on small businesses has been devastating. In New York City, nearly 1/3 of small businesses will never reopen their doors. Those that have made it this far, like Barbess, have had to adapt and do it quickly before it's too late.
We were managing okay, and now we're barely surviving. I mean, I'm not getting paid. We have a very, very small staff. And we used to put out a monthly schedule. This is the last one we have.
Watching the business and creative space he built crumble before his eyes hasn't been easy. But Olivier says not being one of the nearly 70,000 New York City businesses that will close forever, he considers Barbess one of the lucky ones.
We've managed to survive for 9 months already, which is to itself pretty amazing. I see so many empty stores. And I have to say we have had a lot of support from the community.
The bar has lost more than 75% of its revenue. But what's truly missing is the music, the soul of Barbess that's been ripped out by the pandemic.
To still reach out to people until we have 2 cameras.
Olivier hopes that come spring, there will be music again. Because in Barbess, the silence is loud. In Park Slope, Jessica Easthope, Currents News.
As the pandemic continues to affect families, workers, and local businesses, a second round of stimulus checks are now on the way. So when will you receive the money? Mandy Gaither reports.
The motion to concur is agreed to.
In a sweeping pandemic aid bill passed just before Christmas, Congress approved $600 stimulus payments for each eligible person. The first of those payments started going out on December 29th. You may have seen it pending in your account, but the funds officially became available Monday. The payments will continue to be sent through January 15th. But anyone eligible who isn't automatically sent the money by then will have to claim it on their 2020 tax return, according to the IRS. Paper checks or debit cards will be sent to those who don't already have a bank account on file with the IRS. Checks also began going out last week. People can check the status of both their first and second stimulus payments by using the Internal Revenue Service's Get My Payment Online tool. Some people may not receive the money the same way as in the first round. If you were sent a preloaded debit card last year, the payment will not be added to that card. You'll either receive a new card in the mail or a paper check. I'm Mandy Gaither.
Celebrating his first public mass of the new year, Pope Francis is calling on Catholics to devote more time to worshiping God. Today marks the solemnity of the Epiphany of the Lord, a day commemorating when the Magi visited baby Jesus. In his homily, the Holy Father reflected on the wise men's travels, saying we should all lift up our eyes, set out on a journey, and see. Another reminder to parents, you still have time to submit to the annual Tablet Christmas Art Contest. Students in grades 1st through 12th in Brooklyn and Queens are invited to express their faith through art with the theme, Keep Christ in Christmas. So if your child is interested, they can send their artwork to the tablet.org/2020 art contest. Remember, this is a digital art contest, so no physical artwork will be accepted at the Tablet's office. And again, Wednesday, January 13th is the deadline, so you have to submit those works of art before 5 p.m. that day. Still to come on Currents News.
It feels like I'm starting a path for other girls.
You'll meet this amazing teenager who's inspiring other young women and making history in the process, becoming one of the nation's first female Eagle Scouts. Her story is next. Do you have a story idea or want to share a tip? Email us at newstips@desalesmedia.org or call our 24-hour number, 718-517-3122. We'll be right back. Eagle Scout is the highest achievement in the Scouts program, and this past New Year's Eve, one teenage girl made history. Local Scout leaders officially recognized her as an Eagle Scout, one of the first girls to achieve the honor. Felicity Bosk spoke with her about the milestone from Eau Claire, Wisconsin.
It takes 21 merit badges to be an Eagle Scout. Maddie Branco has 36.
I decided to do way more merit badges because I just found a joy for doing them.
Maddie also completed a community service project by building picnic tables for the Flying Eagle Ski Club, another key part to being qualified to be an Eagle Scout. She, like tens of thousands of other girls, joined Scouts BSA when they began admitting girls in February 2019. She was inspired to join largely by watching her brothers and what they got to do in the Scouts. And in a classic sibling rivalry, she wanted to outdo them.
And I really wanted to get Eagle before my brothers.
This winter, hundreds of girls nationwide are going before their local board of review and being recommended to the National Council to become an Eagle Scout. Maddie's recommendation ceremony took place Thursday, something that the Chippewa Valley Council president says is exciting to see.
Maddie is truly the epitome of an Eagle Scout. She really embraces all of the Scout oath and what it means to be a Scout. She really lives it every day in her life.
Being among the first female Eagle Scouts in the organization's 100-plus year history is not something lost on Maddie, who says that she hopes more children can learn the skills Scouts BSA teaches.
It feels like I'm starting a path for other girls.
In February, Maddie and hundreds of others will be officially confirmed as Eagle Scouts, but on Thursday afternoon, she was able to be recognized by the local Scout leaders and got a big hug from her very proud mom.
Again, that was Felicity Bosk reporting. Maddie is also involved in Girl Scouts and is working toward her Gold Award, which is the highest honor in that organization. So congratulations to her. She is a real go-getter. And that is Currents News. I'm Christine Persichetti. Thank you for joining us because we are putting your faith in the news. Hope to see you again next time.